Now, the idea is how we can approach our environment, how we can approach this environment from a distant camera. And of course, you could just do the same technique with lower res and do a lot of different chunks of flipbooks just to cover whatever area that you want more in front of the camera. But as this is a course, and my idea is to give you like insights of different approaches and how to optimize your scene to achieve a nice result with less effort. And then of course you can go from that and just improve and take more time for simulation. So what we're going to do is basically recycle a lot of the elements that we already have in our key shot, the medium size shot. And this one, I just the only thing that I brought in our scene is a new camera. The camera is something like this, so it's still like from the range, I'll say like from 72 to 144, just because I want to keep the same bolt animation, recycle the splashes, so we don't need to do that. And yeah, so that's the camera. It starts with this framing and then goes to this one, and then it's just like going forward, moving forward a little bit, but nothing much, just a little bit of like establishing shot. And now if you see like the areas that we need to cover is huge, and it would be even like with a low res sim, you need like a 300 meters container just for this front chunk. So it's a lot, you know. But let's do it. So my idea for that is if when it came to the ocean grid and we did these elements for the white water that's based on the cusp, they're okay for the distance, but they lack a lot of like natural and variation in the movement, especially for the foreground. So I want to try something different for that. The idea is that we're going to have like our geometry, the ocean geo, and this geometry is just the grid displacement with the displacement, and we're going to have like the scattered the white water from the simulation into this, and that's going to give us a rough but a nice variation on the white water. Like it's just going to cover a lot of that, and we're going to have like a dark scene, and it's going to be covered with fog and mist and all that. So for that, my idea is to grab like maybe the white water from the top center. That's a big area, and it's kind of like, or we can do even better. So let's start doing something cool. What I want to do is like that. I want to place down a geo node, right? Let's call this base white water, and I want to divide that again to my dual chunk here, and in this one is the base white water, and in this one I want to import those guys. So let me do manual first and then object merge, and I want to import first these guys, these points, import them in here. I want to copy and paste, and let's grab this one from here, and finally the big one is the surface. Where is the surface? Yeah, it's this guy. This is a lot of points, and we don't want to scatter that, so we need to post-process this guy before we actually get like the proper element that we're going to scatter. So I'm going to just check the amount of points that we have here. So this is the area, and for that, around like the frame 120, that's just like a nice reference for us. We have roughly 500,000 points. It's not a lot, so it's good amount of points. And then in this guy, we probably have around like 2 million, something like that. Yeah, 2 million is this element. So if we see them together, is this element. All right. And then this one we have a lot of points. And I want to have like all of them with roughly the same number of points, just to have like an average of that. We don't want to bring a lot of white water. You see how much we have here. And I'm almost tempted to discharge this one because it covered so much area. But maybe it's interesting. Now let's keep it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just see is 37 million. So I'm going to do a group expression again, and let's delete a lot of these particles just randomly. So we can just come to points and 30% chance. We can call the ID because that's something that we do have. And I want to select thing like smaller than 0.5. It's getting a lot of points. 1 million. We are getting just 1,800,000. I'm going to go even further, like 3. And we're getting roughly 1,000,015. Now we get like 500. And let's blast those. Right, group 1. We delete non-selected. And we have like that. So it's a representative of the areas because it's random. It didn't delete just from one area, but rather all over the place a little bit and just reduce it a lot. And we're going to do the same thing here. But of course, because this is much less, we can make it like maybe less than 50% or 0.15. We get like almost, yeah. Now we have roughly the same. And let me merge all these guys. So let's merge. So we have this area now. All right. For these ones, you see like how they kind of like have a hard edge. I want to do something about it. And my idea here is just to grab like the edges and fade the P scale towards the edge, so we have like a just a gradual transition here and nothing there. And also in the whole area, we're going to do that for this element first, because this one I can see that there is a rough ending because we didn't advect that velocity into this, and we have this line. Or actually even better, we're going to do like something else. We're going to just transform this guy a little bit in the X. So I'm going to say like 4. Yeah, they overlap, like maybe 6. You see, they become a little bit more messy, and that's going to work for us much better. And now I just want to fade a little bit the edges, so we can do like a time shift just to freeze the frame to get the bounce. So I'm going to get like this, and we do like a point up. And I also want to delete the P scale. I'm going to do an attribute delete because I want to create a new P scale, because all these elements, they have like different P scales. So I'm going to delete the P scale. So, okay. Delete P scale. Great. Also, let's delete the density as well. Yeah. And then let's do an attribute create. No, attribute randomize. Attribute randomize. And let's randomize the p-scale. We're going to do one dimension and 0.0, I don't know, like 0.8 and 0.01, and then we can tweak that later. But basically we can do that, and I'm going to do this fade bounce. Okay, so we want just to fade a little bit the p-scale and the depth in these areas. I'm going to go ahead here and get relative to bounding box, but the bounding box, that's why I froze that frame. I don't want to change every single frame, so it's just an average is this one and this one, and we can just get vector component. Let's get the vector component, and we can start with the x, yeah, and we can do like a ramp parameter, spline ramp, and just let's visualize that in the color. Okay, yeah, I forgot to place that in. Yeah, so we have like this gradient, and what we want is to have like the blacks in the edges, kind of like that, and like that. So, but with a more like a gradient. So we're going to change that to cat camel, and we have like now this gradient, and we're going to do that for this axis as well. So same thing. We're going to, let me just name that ramp x and x, and I think when we do that we kind of like miss. All right, now get vector component. This is the component z. We select, we do another ramp parameter. This is going to be ramp z and z, and let's visualize just that. Oh, sorry, it's not this one, and I forgot to turn this to spline. You can just copy parameter, paste values, and we're going to bring that a little bit more towards here. Just ensuring that we have like this soft. Yeah, that's good. So now if we multiply those, we're going to get like all the edges like black. And now if we do a bind export, we're going to bring the p-scale. Oh, sorry, I have like this set on scale. I'm going to export that to p-scale as well again, but I'm going to multiply. So we have our p-scale. We're going to multiply this by 1 and this by 0. So it's going to, or a ramp to 0. And that's going to give us the particles just disappearing towards the edge. And we can overlap this in our scatter system. It's going to be more clear once we we set everything, but let me disable. And then if I now set this to disks, you're going to see that we have this going and going, like fading away. Okay, so maybe, yeah, it is good, but I think the P scale we might want to not do this way, or we can do that way. But now we can do another P scale based on the density. I think it's more, it's better for us to do like that, because I don't want these small particles to be big, and I want the bigger chunks to be bigger. So we're going to come in here and let me see, we can do that before that. So instead of doing the P scale this way, let's do a point VOP and let's do the density search. Set new P scale. I'm going to dive in and we're going to do like a density search. This is an HDA just with the PC open and PC num found, but I provide to you guys. Very simple, and we're going to do it ourselves. So it's just a dynamic way to set. And this one, let me visualize. Yeah, here is almost good. Like maybe we can even increase the area a little bit like that. So we have like this, and I'm going to do a fit range again. So fit range, and I want 0 to 1, and I want whatever is 1 to be 0.015. Or maybe 0.2, and here 0.009, and do it bind export. Yeah, now I have like some bigger areas in here, and yeah, it's going to be okay. All right, now we just need the density attribute to match that. So now our P scale is going from, we know the range, so we can just come in here. We have the P scale, we can fit range that from whatever numbers that we have. That is, we're going to go, I think, just double check what we have here. So P scale now is going to all the way to 0, but let me see the biggest part. 0 to 0.25, that's good. So we're going to go from 0 to 0.025, and this is the density. We're going to 0 to 1, yeah, to 1.5. That's good, and we bind export that to density. Now we have the density also fading in the sides. That is exactly what we want. So now we have like this big chunk of particles, and I think I just have the feeling that these particles here, they're a bit more dense, and I don't know why they look denser there than these particles here, if the amount of particles should be the same. So we have like this 600,000, 2 million. Yeah, maybe we can double that. Yeah, to match a little bit more. And that as well, the same thing. I want to just double that or even more. Yeah, this is a bit more interesting. All right, so now in the next lesson, we're going to keep processing that, and I will show you how we're going to use that to scatter around our geometry. Thank you. So let's keep working on this. Next, I want to bring this to the center of our. I want to bring this to the center, to the 0, so we can scatter based on the center of our world. In this case, very disaligned because here it's the 0. So we can just do like a transform. And let me change back to points because it's much faster. Now I have this in the center. And then if you come to this and do like this minus $CEX, it's going to bring it to the center. And if I do here dollar minus $CEZ, it's also going to bring. So now we are in the center, not in the Y, but it's okay. We're going to do something else with the Y because we need to ray that into our grid. So now what I need to do is, if you have this selected, you can just Control Shift click, so it kills the expression, but keep that. The reason why is if you keep that expression every frame, it's going to slightly change a little bit because that's always calculating the centroid of this, and sometimes it might have like a different centroid because the particles are changing. So you just don't want, you just want this to be roughly in the center, and then you delete the expression. Just Control Shift and left click. Okay, it deletes. And now we're going to create a grid. For that, let's select the grid, and the grid should be the size of the area that we want to scatter. It doesn't need to be in the correct position because we can change that later, but we need to have it in the correct size for what we want to scatter. And I would say like around 350 by 350. It's good. So it's this area. You see we're coming from this, and we're going to have this scattered in around this area. And let's calculate the normals. And I want to, yeah, it's not like, yeah, we don't need to basically, yeah, we don't need to. It's good. We can keep like 10 because we are going to scatter. We can scatter on the points of the grid, but we can also scatter, we could scatter in these points, but we're going to just create a scatter node. So let's do a scatter. We're going to scatter way less, so I'll say like 25 maybe, let's see. And I want to increase the relax iterations maybe to 15, just to have like them separate, evenly separate. And I want to increase that to the maximum radius where they start to be affected to relax. If you have like this very, very small, it's going to look if for particles around 10 meters for itself, and then it's going to relax, push them away from themselves, but only in a radius of 10 meters. If we increase that to 100, it's going to look to 100 meters. And now you can see that we have all these particles evenly spread. So I want to do another scatter and align node. In this scatter and align, we're going to just scatter, we're going to add attributes to existing point cloud. Okay, so the point cloud is the same that we have. Now we're just adding attributes to it. And the attributes that I want is just a variation on here. So we have like 0 and 13 degrees just to slightly change the rotation, and also a little bit the scale of that. So 0.9 and 1.2. Don't change this drastically because they could start to look strange. When you increase the radius too much, the particles are going to be more scattered apart. Not this one, but the ones from the white water source. And we did all that because we're going to do a regular copy to points on this guy. And this is the result. We're going to have like all this white water. Let's look from the camera position. Is not in the correct location, but it's roughly what we want. You see, we're going to have all that. And instead of having that regular calculated by the cusp attributes, the white water that we use for the background that we're going to still use for the background, we now have a real simulated white water. And we're going to deform that based on the grid, so they're not going to look as repetitive as we have in here, because they're going to be displaced differently. And that's a nice way to do that. And we have like a nice variation, I would say. So, okay. Next, we need to flatten this guy out. So we need to just come, we don't need the Y variation, because that's going to be driven by our scattered, our scattered spectra. So let me do a transform, regular transform, just plug this in. Let's call this flatten. The scale and the Y, we want to zero this out. Great. And now we want to place them in the center again, because now the center is not exactly, it might not be the exact center of that. So we can just come in here, do a transform. Actually, we don't need, we just need to flatten them based on the y-axis. So I'm going to just do like minus $CEY. And now we can just select and do that. And you see like it became like 8 meters. Let's look from this angle. And you see a flat line. And before we have like this around 8 meters away on that. No. Okay, yeah, it's not. It was already. There is a knee here. That means that there's a lot of. It's just a roughly zero, so it's okay. We were already in zero, because these were in zero, so we don't even need that. So it's all good. We just flatten this out and we're good to go. The next, we need to deform that with the spectra, but we're going to do like some variations with the spectra, and we're going to do that in the next lesson. Thank you. Welcome back. So here, I just cached this, so we have like all the points, and it's going to be much faster. And I also made a transformation just to push them a little bit, like they were like just more in the position that I could push them away a little bit and get like more area covered, and that's it. So now we need to displace this using the spectra, and for that I'm going to do a few things. One thing, I want to start cleaning up this scene, because this is the new scene. We're just recycling a lot of things, but in general we don't need all that. But from here, what is the spectrum, the base spectrum that we use in our simulation, and this is the one that we used in the simulation, right? But this one is the low resolution, and I think this one is a copy of that, or no? No, this is the high frequency. This is the one that is the same one as this one, but has more resolution. So I'm going to copy these two guys in here, and I'm going to this big wave geo node here, and I'm going to paste this. So the thing that we're going to do, and I think we can now go ahead and delete all that. We don't need anymore those here. We don't need. Can bring this one here. This is the ocean grid. We can this is not background anymore. This is the real deal, because we only have this, and we probably can do like this, and I'm going to place this here. All right, we also won't need that because we have this cached already, but just in case, I'll keep that a little bit longer. So we figure out if we need any of these yet. So now I want to go to the shelf and I'm going to click on the large ocean just because I want to copy some nodes. So this one we can delete, we can go inside, and the system that I want to do is to get like the scatter and the split, and I'll explain you in a moment what that does, just to save some time. So we can come here and we can paste that. Okay, so the thing is that we need like a grid. Now the grid is the size of our ocean, so we can just do like grid, and this grid should be the size and the area from the grid that we're going to render. So I'm going to just, maybe we can just grab this grid from this one that we read, but we don't need any blast, so we don't want this. And let me see that from the camera it doesn't cover the camera, so we actually need to go ahead and do like maybe like that, maybe that, and now we're covered. So this is the grid that we want, and I want to do like that. So let's, all right, so this grid I want to just link this relative and the center as well. All right, and now what that does is it's going to scatter a lot of points on this grid, okay, that we need to define later how much points, how many points do we want, but basically it's getting all these points, and on each point it's going to instance one of the spectrums that we define here. And to do that we have this split, and the split has an expression that is taking the number of points from the input 0 from this input, and it's just dividing it in two. So half is going into this spectrum and half is going to a totally different spectrum. To clearly see that, I'm going to make a copy of this one, but I'm going to unlink all these things. I want to change the seed, and I want to make it like really, like, I want to make it much bigger, like, I don't know, 30. And I also want to play with the amplitude. I want to make it like 5. So it's just like really bigger. And I want to merge. And now we can grab just like, we can grab these guys up. This one and this one, make a copy. And we can visualize on it. Let me see the revolution. I want to have 48 to 48. And I want this to be bigger, like 500 and 500. This is just to visualize, right? So that doesn't make an effect. Okay, and now we see this is one of the spectrums and this is the other one. And of course, because of the seed and the area, it's going to be in different areas, but this is the radius around it. And for the size of the grid, the size of this grid and the amount of points that we have, you see that the range of the spectrum is based on this wave instancing. And you can see that it's been like very small for that. Like you can just double that, for example, and I see like this getting much bigger, and we can do the same thing in here. And you see that doesn't affect, still is missing. So let's make this, I don't know, like, let's start 3000. And now it's covering almost everything maybe, or it's still like some areas, so maybe we need like 5,000. And now we pretty much covered, I guess, some areas like 8,000. Yeah, 8,000, and we have like this. And the reason why we want to do that is because you break up the tiling, because every single point has a different spectrum, and that break up the tiling. But I want to keep the animation of the boat here in the center, so we need to do something about that. We don't need for the center part, the part around the boat, we can have still like the same one, so we need to make sure that we have this one. And for the parts away from that, we can have like the variation. Okay, so this variation is not that, right? Like, so we need to do something. And before we do that, I want to select the center, so I want to keep the same spectrum in this area around the boat. So to do that, what we can do, we can grab like an object merge. I can bring the boat, so we can just come and get like the sailboat in, and alt render. Yeah, it can be this one, alt render. Okay, and I want the boat. The boat is very tiny here, but I want to just time shift and get more or less in the middle range, like, because we don't want it to move, because I'm going to get the distance of the boat and keep some points around that, and these points I'm going to make sure that I have like the one of the scatters, and for the other one I'm going to split. So I don't want this to move, because then the point will be changing over time. So we need to just grab, like, for example, the frame 120, and now we can just say like, okay, so now we have this. It's not going to move because I break that dollar frame expression and kept on fixed on the 120. And I'm going to just do a point up. I'm going to paste this in here, and let's call this keep close boat XYZ distance from the second input. I'm going to grab the position. I'm going to grab the position, and let's say compare. And also I want to visualize that. Am I looking? Yeah, we have, like, you see that the points are very sparse from each other. So I'm going to just go and compare and say that the distance should be less than, I don't know, let's say 50. And you have like these 3 points. I go like all the way to 100 or to 80, and we got like 90. Yeah, we got like these points around the boat. This one, I'm going to make sure that I have the same spectra of my animation. So I'm going to compare, and what else is equals to 0, like the black points, I want to remove. Actually, let's do different. Like, I'm going to just do like a bind export and export an attribute that is an integer, because it's black or white. There's no middle term. So I'm going to make like an integer and call this select. And I'm going to, okay. Now we can do a split. That is going to be a different split, because this split, and I'm going to grab this one here and this one here. So the first split, we're going to say whatever at select is bigger than 0, and this is on points. And if we did now we have only this selection. And on this selection, we're going to have like this spectrum on them. That is the same one that we have for our simulation. And the animation is based on this one. And for every other point, we're going to have like two different spectrums that we make variations from this one. So we don't make it very different. It's important that you have like, it should be similar to that because it's the same ocean, right? But not like, okay, so this one, I'm going to make like a different seed, like that, different seed. Also, I think I'm using the wrong one. I'm pretty sure that I'm using the wrong spectrum because this looks to me that we have like the big one. Let me just double check if my spectrum, because this is the big one. And this is 350, this is 58. Yeah, I copied the wrong one. I'm sorry. I should let me get back the correct one. Sorry, I discovered what I did wrong. I didn't copy the wrong one, but you see that what this is saying, that these references is pointing to the ocean spectrum 1 on the same context. And when I copy that one, it was referencing another ocean spectrum 1 that we had in that scene. And now this guy is actually not linked because I copy now then unlinked, but the one that we copy was this one. It should be the same as this, but the reference here is referencing to wherever in this context is the ocean spectrum 1. In this case is this guy. So all these parameters were linked back to this instead of the one that we wanted. So sorry, it was a mistake. So just to make clear, when I copied that, it was on this. Let me show you here. I have it open here again. All right, so you see I copied this guy, right? Like, so from this context before we deleted that. And this is the grid size 80 is seed 1. It matches this one that we use for our simulation. Is the grid size seed 1, grid 80. You see that the name of this is Ocean Spectrum 1. So all these are linked to the same context, so the same level. So it's two dots and slash. That means that it's inside this area and is looking for the Ocean Spectrum 1, and then the attribute that's the grid size. Okay, so it's linked to that one. So if I copy this one, you see that this is the 80 here, and if I paste that, it's nice that I did this mistake because then you learn something else. You see that this is also spectrum 1, but this is a 350 seed. But once I paste it in here, it's going to keep looking for that spectrum, and then it changes everything. So that was my mistake. So sorry for that. And now I have it correct. One way of breaking that is you can just rename that ocean spectrum here to something else and it won't. But I just copied the version that has no linked. I'm just going to increase that resolution to 11. And all these are fine actually, because we do want to have do the same thing for the big ocean spectrum, so we don't have repetition, because this camera shows a lot, and if you keep repeating all over, it's going to be bad. So we also going to keep working on that. So this is for the big ocean spectrum. So I'm going to select this one, and this one is missing, so I need to do one more copy, and I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to merge this guy and this guy. So you can merge as many as you want. The only thing is that don't copy them on the same points, otherwise they are accumulative, they're additive. They're going to be much bigger because they're going to put one on top of the other. But now we do have like a variation, not. because this is not, we didn't change much. So yeah, we changed the seed here. I'm going to play with the seed here. I'm going to go like with 10 just to make it a little bit smaller. Maybe the amplitude, I can make this one as well and make like 2.2, so we have one that's a little bit smaller. Then for this one we need a different seed again, so I'm going to do like 3, any seed, just random numbers. I'm going to get like 11. I'm going to make this a little bit a different direction, maybe 42, and maybe the fat, I'm going to just change this to 200, and even that, like maybe I make like 6. So just like each one's a little bit different. All of them have the same radius here, so it's covering the area. To test that, we can just increase that to, I don't know, like 2000 and 2000. And you see now we don't have like a repetition, so you can see there is variation. But instead, if I just come in here and just let me copy this one and disconnect that and paste that in here, you're going to see that from here is better, that you can see like it's repeating itself. You can see a pattern happening, and it's different than this one, that you have much more variation. We keep working on our next class. See you there. In this area, if you see that, we're going to have like the same spectrum in this area than this one. Oh, there is one thing that is happening. That's why is adding that, because is the area, the 60 meters. Maybe we need to do this 40, this 40, and this 40, so they don't overlap. Okay, now we have like some flat areas that are not being covered by the points, so we probably need to increase the points. I'm going to increase the points 10,000. These points, those points, and we have like all of them. I need more points, so I'm going to increase that to 15,000. And now, yeah, now we do have. Let me go back in here to where the boat is. Where the boat is in here. I'm going to just visualize all. Yeah, not. Yeah, I don't want to visualize this one, just the boat. So, okay, this one. Why is that? Let me see what I'm having here. Something is different. Okay, I know the reason why. It's because we actually have different points, and that's changing the position of that spectra. Let me go 20, 40, 0, 0, 0, 0, and maybe the amplitude is set to 1. Now let me see if that's, why is that so much different than this one. Let me just figure out. So this is not the best method to keep the same position as we have like original one, because I want to match the animation for this big spectrum and for this small one. So we go for another route that I just think it's a little bit better for that. And the thing that we need is to grab like the bound of the boat, and we're going to use like a mask. We're going to build a mask with that. So Let's get the bound. And the bound you can have like by default is a box, but we can set as a sphere. And I want to set this to 100, maybe 25, 100, 100, 25, and 100. I'm just making it much bigger. And the second input that we have here in our ocean, this is the mask input. You see the mask, and the mask expect like a fog VDB for that. So we're going to build that. And in here, all right, yeah, this one we don't have any geometry. This is just like a 1 1 1 1. So let's convert. We can convert that. And the subdivision span, let's just increase that to 5 to 5 just to have a little bit more. And then a VDB from polygons. This one we want to make it really big, like we don't need to have like high resolution on this guy. It's like it's fine like that. And it's not a surface, we want the fog, the density, and we're going to place that. If we now use that to mask this guy, and let me disconnect that and let's plug this straight in, you see that we're going to have like a hash line, because when we created that, here there is like a value of negative and here is positive, but we don't have any transition for that, so we need to do a volume sample for that. Let me do, and let me grab this one. Maybe we need all this to be a little bit lower here, and let's do a volume VOP. So with the volume VOP we can do basically the same process that we do in a regular point VOP. So I'm going to plug this guy in, and also the bolt. This is the bolt with the time frame in the center, right? So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to just create a gradient for that. So let's create a gradient. Let's get the XYZ distance again, one of my favorite nodes. From the second input, we grab the position, we fit range, and I want to fit range this one between, I don't know, like 50 meters all the way to 100. And when it's 50 meters, I want this to be full on, and at 100 is 0. So it's going to have like a gradient all the way to the edge. And we can make like a ramp just to even control a little better this ramp, so it's not linear. And we're going to multiply that, the density by this. Oh, sorry, not that. So the density, the mask. And for now it's going to disappear because that come as like that, but once we plug this in here, you can start to see that we have a gradient. So what I want to do, I want to create like this and make a B-spline, and I want this gradient to go like that. Yeah, just like to die a little bit softer, you know. Yeah, and here we can just dive a little bit like that. And now if instead of that we plug this, we're going to start having a like a smooth transition. You see, like almost disappear. And for this, when you come to this and you can visualize the mask tab, we can go into visualization, see the mask, but it's set to contribution. So you can set to suppression or to contribution. If you have this plugged in, it's not going to consider all these noise parameters. So we can just disable that, but it's not considering. Yeah, it is actually considering a little bit of that, but it's fine. We don't need that. We just need this. And now we have that. And if we plug the same field here in the other two, but these two, the mask should be suppression and this one should be contribution. What it means is it's contributing the spectrum into this area and is suppressing the spectrum into this area. So now if we plug, we're going to have like that. It's a nice ocean spectrum that we don't see the repetition again, and we keep the same spectrum in the center, because for the first one we're not giving any points. I'm just not using the selection points, but I make sure that for these guys, well, actually we don't even need that now. We can just plug that into here. Yeah, because we don't need the points, like the selection of the points that we did by that, and we don't need this mask again. So now we have a nice transition, and we still have the same spectrum in the area that we want. That's great. So this is now our big spectrum. I'm going to just maybe copy and paste that. So I'm going to call this big spec mix. So, or let's combine it. And I'm going to cache to Spectra OS, or I think I have like this in the heap file, geo spectrum, and that's the path that I want. This path. Going to save. And then I want to do the same thing, but for this guy. This is the other one. So let's copy everything that we have here. So I think I can copy all of this. And oh, sorry. I saved this from the Ocean Evaluate, and it's not that. What you want to save is always the spectra only. So I'm going to save now. Yeah, now it's correct. Sorry for that. And let me disconnect this one. And then I want to copy all of this and including that. And we're going to do that for the other one as well. We need to change a few things here, because the area where it repeats in this one is 300. The big spectra is 300. Where is the big spectrum? Yeah, this one is 350, the grid size, and the other one, if I don't, is 80. So it's going to repeat more often. So for that, we're going to do something different. So just replace this guy for this one. And also we need to make copies of this one and copies of this one. All right. So plug this one here. Let's plug this one here. Yeah. You see how much it repeats, because it's completely different. And also the mask is different for this one. So let's work on that. First thing, we need to change the seed of all of this. This one, that. The mask is okay, but now the amount of points for a scatter, it's maybe we need to reduce the wave instancing here. We need to increase that to 40. and this one to wave instance into 4, and wave instance into 4. And I think we might have 2 points. I want to start to feel like some spaces without any, Yeah, it's just because in this the mask is suppression, but in this the mask is also suppression, and I have like need to set this to contribution because otherwise it wasn't masking that at all. And now I can just visualize what we're doing properly. Sorry, too many mistakes today. Okay, 6,000 until we don't see the gaps anymore, like so 7,000 still 8, 12, and I think we reached the limit. Well, let's see, 11 minimum that you get, but otherwise start to overlap. I think let's try 10. Yeah, 10 is not working, so 11 is our number. And now we see a little bit of gap here and there. It's not that bad, but I think 12 maybe is the safest. Yeah, now we are fully covered. And yeah, so we're fully covered. To compare, we can just make a copy of this without any masking and plug in here. And yeah, you see this area is the same. And yeah, I don't know why we have something here. Maybe the range of the mask with radius. Maybe it's the range of this mask. Maybe we can reduce that a little bit to 90. No, 110. 130. 60. 150. Yeah, we're good. Doesn't matter. It's going to move and it's going to be all good. And we're going to add this on top of the other one. So yeah, we're good. We just need to give some variation to that. Seed is 34, seed is 50. I want to play with the wind. I think this one can be wind of 4. Amplitude, I want to multiply by 1. Yeah, let's see from the camera. Great. Now I need to save, so I'm going to just bring this guy in. It's better like I copy this one because the path is correct. And we're going to save this Spectra. Big Spectra combined. This is we call this flip spectrum combined. And I'm going to save this to disk. That is great. Yes. In the next lesson, sorry for all this confusion, but in the next lesson, we're going to keep working on that and distorting our ocean, our white water first, and then we're going to start setting also the rain and the mist in front of the camera to have like this nice touch. And see you there. Thank you.